again. If you're new to this series, then I turn 52 later this year, and I'm selecting a significant album from every year of my life, every week this year. There's a playlist on the channel of all the episodes so far, but today we're at week 12. That's 1983. And as the years roll by and my own interest in music grew, there are naturally more albums, both retrospective favourites and back-in-the-day obsessions, that I've had to overlook this time for this year. In pop terms, Bowie's Let's Dance was unavoidable in 1983. A big album. The title track, his first #1 single in 3 years, and both China Girl and Modern Love missing the top spot by the skin of their teeth. The first, Now That's What I Call Music compilation came out this year. Various artist best-ofs up to this point had been tawdry, top of the pops themed cash-ins, covers of the big hits of the day by session bands. No involvement from the original artists whatsoever. The Now series blew up that format overnight, with Virgin and EMI burying the hatchet and working together to make themselves a lot of money. So cooler stuff I wasn't aware of at the time. Well, starting with the UK, New Order's Power, Corruption and Lies album came out this year, the band's best, and it is my favourite. Also, how about Soul Mining by The? Many prefer Infected from 1986, but I think this is Matt Johnson's best, and it still sounds fresh as a daisy to me, even with 40 plus years on the tyres. From the US, well, this was the year of REM's incredible debut album Murmur, the start of a run of records that would pave the way for the rise of the alternative rock phenomenon much later in the decade. And also Husker Du's Zen Arcade, the point where hardcore started growing up, maybe a psychedelic punk double concept album mixing furious soul-bearing anguish and aggression with increasingly daring melodic invention and know-how. So this was the year I turned 11, and I can confirm it was all about synthesizers in 1983. If it wasn't peak synth pop yet, it was pretty damn close. But that perception of synth-based music as bright, bleepy, upbeat, forward-looking novelty, I guess, just another flash in the pan in the pop world, had started to waver as many of the synth pop originators got serious. Examples, well, Depeche Mode went industrial this year. OMD was singing about genetic engineering, and fairly heavy lyrical themes underpin a lot of the big synth hits of this period. Here's one, Howard Jones. He asked, "What is love anyway? Does anybody love anybody anyway?" Or how about Nick Kershaw? He thought, "Wouldn't it be good if we could wish ourselves away?" This is pretty bleak existential stuff, really, in what, on the surface, are just pop songs. One band in particular, however, put high concepts front and centre of their music, of their debut album, in fact, in a way that really spoke to me. This is my choice for 1983. This is The Hurting by Tears for Fears. And on this album were Mad World, Change and Pale Shelter, all top 5 UK hit singles between the tail end of 1982 and on into 1983. Tears for Fears were drawing very heavily on the primal theories of Arthur Janoff for The Hurting. Janoff being a psychoanalyst and writer who championed therapies encouraging the release of repressed memories and emotions associated with childhood pain and trauma. An early demonstration of these primal screams would be on Lennon's Plastic Ono Band album. Think tracks like Mother and God, as he adopted Janoff's approach to dealing with memories of his own troubled upbringing. And Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith of Tears for Fears, friends meeting through music, both grappling with their own very difficult childhoods, took huge swathes of Janoff's writing and adapted it for The Hurting. The track Ideas as Opiates, for instance, is drawn from a chapter heading in Janoff's book, Primal Scream. But musically, though, listening back now, I'm amazed at how little there is to date The Hurting as an early 80s record. Some misjudged sax here or there maybe, but very, very little to get sniffy about. The album stakes out its sonic territory somewhere between the darker post-punk of the time, Joy Division, the Bunnymen maybe, the progressive art rock of Peter Gabriel's third album, and yes, of their synth-pop contemporaries, such as Ultravox, Gary Newman, The Human League. And sitting within that space, it's the melodic nous of Orzabel's songwriting, the switching between lead vocals, Kurt's softer, more soulful tones contrasting with Roland's bigger, more rip-roaring style. And of course, and the willingness, the eager willingness to mix it up that really works in this album's favour. Mixing it up, yeah, here's two examples. There's a really unexpected burst of pure disco bassline. Think Heart of Glass by Blondie, right in the middle of Pale Shelter. That always brings me out in goosebumps every time I hear it. And conversely, the other side, these discordant, unfiltered guitar chords that drop unexpectedly in the middle of Ideas as Opiates. Pills, Keith Levine springs to mind for these sounds. This is clearly the work of young musicians, not afraid to wear their inspirations, both musical and philosophical, proudly. And some might hear that as over-earnest kind of naivety. Yeah, they do drop a few lines of children singing a la 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 melody into, Suffer the Children. And also Watch Me Bleed. It takes some very blunt, clumsy metaphors, maybe textbook teenage poetry, you might say, but weds it to beautiful, airy, goth-tinged, new wave synth goodness. Also, a mention here for Roland's guitar playing. It's a masterclass in non-showy tastefulness. The kind of stabbing rhythmic strum patterns in Change sit in a beautifully economic spot where others might have bunged in a solo. And the whole album ties up magically in the closing track, the start of the breakdown. Big Gabriel-style piano chords, a sinewy bass, this chattering synthetic percussion, stuttering sequencer lines, and a big drum finale from Manny Elias, pushing the song into angsty high drama. I still think it's a great record. I know Songs from the Big Chair, it hits harder, and it certainly did bigger business for them, but The Hurting has a lovely, innocent cohesiveness to it, a real heart-on-sleeve openness. And just to open up a little here, just to remind you, this was 1983 and I was 11. So I was transitioning from primary into secondary school. I was crippled with a complete lack of self-confidence. I was scared. I was bullied mercilessly. I was in a pretty bad place. A lot of the themes here, I think, lend themselves to that kind of adolescent feeling of not fitting in, not belonging. But it did so in a way that was very beautiful. The music was very engaging. So even if you were listening to it by yourself, it made you feel a little less alone. Okay, so that's my choice for 1983. How do you feel about Tears for Fears and this album? For me, it's a great example of youth triumphing over wisdom. I'm far happier listening to them at the start of the decade than at the end. But anyway, if you've got this far, thanks very, very much. Please think about giving this a thumbs up, or please think about subscribing if you'd like to see more of these. But as ever, that's it for now. You take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.